Let's start with our first news. Anderson Silva fires back at Dana White. Homo Fight Picks is doing the work most people won't. Hours of tape study, match breakdowns, and line shopping for every single card. The Discord went up over 130 units in 2025 alone, with a 3-year proven track record of profits. This isn't parlays for clicks, it's discipline betting. They're letting viewers check out the Discord for free this weekend. Just use the link in the bio to join the best betting Discord in combat sports for free. Back to the news. Earlier this week, Dana White claimed that Anderson Silva refuses to speak with him because he was upset that the UFC would no longer allow him to continue fighting in the promotion. He said, "And then you get beat." And even some of the guys, Anderson Silva, a guy whom I've known, was always a unique individual to deal with, but he lost like 8, 9, or 10 in a row. He added that the decision was simple, saying it's over, and Silva was in his 40s at the time. Silva responded on Instagram with laughing reactions, writing that the bald guy said he's been out of the organization for many years already, but apparently, neither the current fighters nor the bald guy can forget his accomplishments. He continued that deep down, the bald guy knows that with him there was no whining, everyone went in to throw down, and he saved the event more than once. And just so it's on record, the bald guy apparently doesn't know how to count. Cain Velasquez said he would consider fighting again if the money was right. This story continues to spark debate across the MMA world today and among fans everywhere online too. Move on to another news. Joe Rogan praises Islam Makhachev. Striking Thompson praised Islam Makhachev and how good his striking has gotten. Check out the clip because if you think about it, Islam's mother's Sevri body. Yeah, he does, and his striking is dangerous. Of course, 100,000 times, but it's like that guy's, he's so terrifying. Once he jets a hold of you, like he submits everybody, he's a whole lot better in the stand-up than people give him credit for. Oh, his stand-up is actually really good. I don't care if Volkanovski took it in 11 days. Notice he still had kick. He's got his sneaky left, ved, ked, kick high. It's nasty. People up standing up, and that's part of the problem is that you get accustomed to thinking about this guy exactly. And then now all of a sudden, bing, he can switch everything in an instant the way he sets up. His combinations is getting sharper every fight. And that's what makes him so dangerous because people expect the grappling first, but then he starts landing clean shots on the feet and it changes the entire dynamic of the fight. Thompson also pointed out that Islam doesn't just rel. Beyond pressure, he actually reads distance very well and times opponents as they try to engage, which is why his striking is so effective against thigh-level opponents. So even when people think they have figured him out, that continues to evolve and improve his stand-up game. And that evolution is what keeps him ahead of most challengers in the division. Rogan highlighted how dangerous Islam becomes. Sans hemixes his grappling with striking because opponents are forced to constantly guess what is coming next, and that uncertainty creates openings for finishing sequence. In fights, she mentioned that even light fighters struggle with that level of pressure because Islam maintains control in every phase of the fight, striking, clinch, and grappling all together, and that makes him one of the most complete fighters in modern MMA. Fans are starting to realize just how well-rounded his skill set has become, especially after recent performances where he showed improved boxing timing, head movement, and calmness under pressure in the cage, which makes his future fights even more intriguing for analysts and fans alike. Overall, this shows slight evolution in MMA striking game. Move on to another news. Alexander Volkanovski doesn't see Justin Gaethje surviving more than 3 rounds with Ilia Topuria. I think he's safe enough and defensive enough to not fall into any of Justin Gaethje's traps. And then as soon as Gaethje opens up game over, I think it could be that quick. As soon as she does open himself up, I think it's going to be a KO for Ilia. You can see he's going to bet the favorite for areas, and I think he's just going to be too much, and he's going to get the KO victory, and he could get the KO victory early rounds. So if Justin Gaethje is quite defensive, you might see it going to these con round, maybe the third, but as soon as Gaethje opens up, you're going to see a finish. That's what I truly do believe, but I think Justin Gaethje has showed me enough where he can be defensive and maybe not make it so easy for Ilia to just catch him straight away. He's not as aggressive as people think. He is when he chooses to fire, but he's quite defensive before. Then with Ilia, he's going to know to be defensive, so I think you're going to see a lot of shelling up, maybe still putting pressure, still getting in a position where Ilia is gonna confer. But defensive enough to just not give him clear shots. Does that wear Ilia down? Let's see, but my pick is going to be Ilia knockout in the first couple, maybe 3 rounds. That's my prediction for the main event. Shawn Strickland crashes Edmund Shabazian's interview. Edmund will be fighting Brendan Allen next week, and this matchup is expected to draw major attention from fans due to the rising stakes in the division, with both fighters looking to climb the rankings quickly. Shawn Strickland's appearance during the interview added extra drama as she interrupted the siege conversation briefly before walking away again while fans reacted online to the moment. Edmund continues to prepare for his his upcoming bout, focusing on adjustments in training and strategy ahead of fight night. The team believes he has made improvements in both striking defense and cage control, aiming to secure a statement victory next week in a crucial fight for his career. Momentum division standings shifting rapidly this season. Overall momentum. Move on to another news. Carlos Prates and Kamaru Usman believe Ian Garry has not done enough for title shot. Both Carlos Prates and Kamaru Usman believe Ian Garry has not done enough to earn the next welterweight title shot. And you're absolutely right. Carlos, and this is the exact explanation that I was trying to make. If you look at the stats, you look at the paper. I'm not sold that he's the next guy. But of course, you did the company a favor. I'm going to take a short notice versus Carlos Prates to save a card. I'm going to take another short notice versus Shavkat to save. That fight on that card, this is the decision. These are the only reasons the company is like, okay, you know, what you took those short notice for us. Okay, if you win those, we'll give you a shot. And that's what they are, because if you look at the stats, I'm not sold. Yeah, you are 3 knockouts in a row, haven't gone to the bell. I think what you haven't even left the 3rd round in those 3. Jeff Neal finished Leon Edwards, finished JDM. The way he was looking finished him strikes. And when you break it down even further, the criticism is that Ian Garry has not faced enough long competitive battles against pranked contenders to clearly separate himself from the rest of the divisions. Supporters argue that his activity and willingness to step in on short notice should matter heavily in title contention discussions. However, others believe that title shots should be strictly based on ranked wins and dominant performances, light opposition, rather than availability or promotional convenience. The debate continues to grow as the welterweight division becomes increasingly competitive with multiple fighters pushing forth. A semi-opportunity, Carlos Prates emphasized that while short notice fights help the company and show professionalism, it still should not override consistent proof against top-level opponents. Kamaru Usman echoed similar sentiments, suggesting that championship opportunities must be earned through proven dominance, rather than situational advantages. Joe Rogan was also blown away recently, realizing that Khabib Nurmagomedov has never bled inside the octagon, a detail that continues to highlight just how dominant this run was during his fighting career, and how rare that level of defensive mastery truly is in modern MMA. Move on to another news. Dana White gives an update on Khamzat's future. Strickland Rematch. Dana White just gave a massive update on the future of Khamzat Strickland, and it sounds like their match is becoming more realistic by the day. White has now confirmed that Khamzat is actively pushing for the Strickland rematch making. It's clear that his focus right now is unfinished business at middleweight. What makes this interesting is that immediately after the Strickland fight, Khamzat had actually told Dana he wanted to move up to light heavyweight, but just weeks later, things appear to have changed with the Chechen now, prioritizing their match instead of an immediate move up in weight. This news becomes 7 more interesting after recent comments from TJ Dillashaw, who revealed just how brutal Khamzat's weight cut was for the fight. Dillashaw claimed Khamzat was in terrible condition heading into weigh-ins, describing him as throwing up green bile and saying the weight cut could have easily turned fatal. Zays, despite all that, Khamzat still managed to push a pace and cardio output that impressed people throughout the fight. Let's dive into what Dana White had to say. Couple questions for my son. He wants to know, is Khamzat going up to light heavyweight? And I want to know, I think it was just announced McGregor is coming back. McGregor is coming back week in Vegas go-heads. So what's the date on that fight? July 11 Saturday. July 11 McGregor versus Holloway in Vegas International Fight Week. And Khamzat right now is asking for their match with Strickland. That's what he wants. We don't know what we're going to do it. So you make that decision at some point. Yeah, you'll just okay. Does Strickland want it? A Strickland will fight. To anybody, yeah, and you know that's the thing I respect about him. He's not running from anybody. No matter the opponent, he is always willing to step in and compete the highest level. And that is why fans continue to push for big fights involving him and Khamzat, because the matchup carries massive attention across the division, and the UFC now has to decide the next move carefully, as both fighters are pushing for clarity on their future plans and potential rematch direction in the middleweight title picture. Official decision expected very, very soon here. Move on to another news. New UFC fights announced. Reported on IG that Jose Delgado will throw hands with Austin Bashi at the UFC's July 18th card in Oklahoma City. Delgado is looking to build on the split decision he recorded over Andrew Feely in March, which followed his unanimous decision loss to Nathaniel Wooden. October, he has gone 3-1 since graduating to the UFC from Dana White's Contender Series. Austin Bashi hasn't competed since last August, when he submitted John Yannison. Prior to that, he lost by unanimous decision to Christian Rodriguez. In January 2025, he's also 4-1 in his last 5 fights, showing solid momentum despite that recent inactivity. In another booking, Leo Walker-Jimish was the first to report that Juliana Miller will battle Rava Oliveira at the UFC's August 8th card in Las Vegas. Oliveira is in desperate need of a victory, as she has lost 3 in a row, and in her last outing back in March, she was taken out Dyer, putting even more pressure on her return fight as she looks to stop the skid and stay relevant in the division. Juliana Miller, meanwhile, is cameo. Unanimous decision loss to Carly Judas in February, after she previously recorded an unanimous decision victory over Ivana Petrovich in May 2025. She is 2-3 in her last 5 fights and will be aiming to get back to a winning record with a strong performance in this upcoming matchup. Both fights add important depth to the UFC schedule, as fighters look to rebound from mixed recent results and build momentum at a critical stage of their careers. Each matchup carries pressure, especially for those on losing streaks or inconsistent runs, where every performance now becomes crucial for future matchmaking and roster position stability. In a highly competitive division landscape, new opportunities continue to open as the UFC calendar fills out with competitive matchups across multiple events and divisions. Allies will now be on how these fighters perform when the octagon door closes and the action begins again on fight night. Move on to another news. Dana White requested to release Tom Aspinall by management. Since getting involved in boxing, Dana White has been going back and forth with Eddie Hearn over the past few weeks. The rivalry has escalated even further, with both mental king about the possibility of working against each other in combat sports business moves. Eddie Hearn recently signed Tom Aspinall to Matchroom Talent Agency, and today he is requesting Dana to release the UFC heavyweight champion from his UFC contract. Speaking to TV Eddie Zed, "I would like Dana to release Tom Aspinall from his UFC contract. I will guarantee Dana that I will pay Tom Aspinall a minimum of 3 times more than what Dana White is paying him." Headed that Dana White should be happy for Aspinall to receive that deal, claiming Aspinall is extremely unhappy and saying, unfortunately for him, he has signed a contract which is one of the worst, most grossly underpaid athletes I have ever seen. It is absolutely disgusting what they are paying him. Things need to change. Just this week, Tom Aspinall did an interview where he called Dana out for downplaying his eye injury. Tom said has not said it in so many words, but he has alluded to it. "I would love for the case it has been at time. It is like you said, if I are not fighting, you are not earnings. So I am not sitting here for fun." He continued saying, "I would love to be fighting. I would love to be on these big cards and these big nights. I did not work since I was 10 years old to sit in the sidelines." The situation has now sparked massive debate across the MMA world, as fans and analysts question fighter pay contracts and long-term obligations inside the UFC. Meanwhile, tensions between promotional powerhouses continue to rise as Eddie Hearn pushes harder for fighter freedom and higher pay, while Dana White remains firm on UFC contractual control. The situation surrounding Aspinall has now become one of the most talked about topics in combat sports this week, with strong reactions coming from both sides of the debate and uncertainty remaining over whether any contract change or release will actually happen in the near future, as negotiations and public pressure continue to build around the heavyweight champion's status in the organized Ion.